跟老板一对一的时候难免会一点紧张，但如何让这个机会更有价值呢？在接下来的2个单元就让我们 break down 不同的问题它的一些 goal 还有一些好处。 So let's dive in。 Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 podcast。 I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast。 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Recently, I've been reading quite a few books on management and leadership. 2 books that stood out to me are The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz, one of the leaders in commercial cloud software back in the 90s and 2000s, and also High Output Management by Andy Grove, the guy who turned Intel from a slowly dying memory company into the world-dominating chip provider it is today. In both of these books, they highly emphasize the importance of one-on-ones. And when it comes to leadership and management, having this kind of one-on-one dynamic with the manager and the direct reports as a way to build connection, understand performance, and really build better relationships between leadership and the rest of the team. But one thing that happens is many people know one-on-ones are important, but they don't understand what is the purpose of a one-on-one. And they just turn it into a, what are you working on recently report? Mm-hmm. Well, magically, the Harvard Business Review actually just output a great article talking about what are the questions that an employee should bring into a meeting with their manager in order to maximize the way a one-on-one is used.
And like Nick said, it's very easy to get into this. What are you working on? What do you need help with? And these kind of questions during the one-on-one. 那我最近也是跟 Nick 常常有很多的 one-on-one, 尤其是跟我们的团队. It's easy to get into that, I would say. You know, without any like prep or anything, you immediately would just go into like, yeah, what are you guys working on? 那我觉得呢，其实对于一个 employee 来讲，我们今天如果要跟老板来做 one-on-one 的时候，可能时间不是很长，你可能只有30分钟，但是你要怎么样 maximize 这个短短的30分钟的时间，让你走出来是有一个很有价值的 there's value to that。 那我们看了这个 Harvard Business Review 呢，它提供了很多很好的建议。So we wanted to separate this into 2 separate episodes. 那我们也提供给大家一些我们的想法 and kind of our feedback to these questions and how to make these questions even better or how to cater that to you.
The first theme of questions around the idea of asking for guidance and input. Rather than going in there and be like, this is what I'm working on and I need you to make decisions, which is good for larger meetings when you need to move things forward. One-on-ones is really about growth. So we wanted to focus the first section of questions on how do you get more guidance from the person. The first question they suggest asking is, I'm having some challenges and struggles with X. Can you help me think about how to navigate and address X successfully?
And along with that, you can also just ask, could you suggest any ideas and thoughts around how I could get more support to help with project Y?
The last question is, what do you think of my idea Z? Do you have any suggestions for how to improve it? Or might you have an alternative idea I should consider?
I really like these questions. I think these are the easiest question to start with. obviously your manager, your executives will be very willing to give you suggestions and advice. But I like these questions because they can be very specific to a very specific project or specific issue that you have, which is really important when it comes to this one-on-one.
I particularly like that second question, and I would rephrase it a little bit. The second question was, could you suggest any ideas or thoughts around how I could get more support, and in brackets, like from people, time, funding to help with a project? But I would even rephrase that because most oftentimes in an organization, dealing with people is one of the most difficult things. So often if someone has a problem with a person, they might go to their boss and be like, oh, this person's really bothering me, or they're not getting their job. And they're expecting their boss to step in. Now, sometimes that will help, sometimes it won't. One of the things that you can do is you can go to your boss and go, I'm having a little difficulty communicating with this person. Do you have any suggestions on how to better understand them or to communicate with them better? Now, what this does is rather than your boss stepping in and fixing the problem, and then again, every time in the future you have a problem with this person, you're probably going to have to get your boss to step in and deal with them. Going to your boss and like, maybe they have a better relationship, or maybe they have a better understanding. Maybe it's not even your colleague. Maybe it's someone on the same level as your boss. That's someone that you have to communicate with in a different department. Just going to them and being like, how do you talk to this person, right? What suggestions do you have to build a better connection or to better understand that person? Now, in the future, you can go communicate better and you don't need someone else to always be the middleman, which is just inefficient or it doesn't really help anybody grow.
Now, another issue that I know a lot of people would face is the process. In a large organization, 尤其是你的很多的 process 要花非常久的时间，要透过很多不同的 department, bosses to sign off. 这个是很多人的一些 challenge. So let's say you do have this particular challenge, and I would really strongly suggest you to actually start by telling your boss your goal. Like, okay, what I really wanted to do is to make sure that our team was able to book this event on time. However, this is a situation that I encounter. How would I, let's say, expedite the process? 因为你已经非常清楚的 laid out 你的目标是什么，这个目标也跟你的 team 或者整个公司是 align， 所以这个部分你的老板就会很愿意来帮助你，能够比如说来加速这个 process 等等。
And this type of question really brings us well into our second theme of the type of questions that you can talk about in a one-on-one. And that is the idea of clarifying priorities and expectations. Part of either goal setting or part of your own process is using a one-on-one to talk about how things get done or what the priorities are. A long, long time ago, we had an episode about how to say no to your boss. And that was about not just because your boss is a jerk, but sometimes upper management doesn't understand the full scope of what you have to handle. So using a one-on-one, not just to report what you're doing, but to talk about the process, the challenges, and the priorities that your role should have.
Right. I still remember that episode. 然后还记得我们是 reference, I think Daniel Pink, that was his suggestions on the importance of talking about what's on your plate and asking advice from your boss on how to prioritize your things, all the tasks that you do. 你的主管可能太忙了，他带的人很多，他并没有办法记得说每一个人手上到底有多少东西。So they may start loading things up on your plate, but here's what you can do is actually to clarify that priorities.
So the first question you could ask is, given what's on my plate, what should I be prioritizing right now? And can you help me understand why? So if you say, here's what's on my plate, you do need to give them a list. But it's definitely a time to go, here are 3 things you told me we have to get done. But what's the priority and why?
And going along with that, you can also say, has he reviewed my workload? Am I taking on the right project and task?
The third question is, Am I on track for meeting my goals and your expectations from your perspective? Is any refocusing necessary?
I think this is really important because you're actually really asking your boss for suggestions on like, I'm doing all of these things, but is it really your expectation? Does it align to your expectation? 如果这件事情对你来讲没有那么的重要，那我是否应该还要花那么多时间在这边 right? So I think it's like, I like that very last bit is like, is any refocusing necessary?
Yeah, part of that is also a lot of people just have KPIs. And that maybe gets set at the beginning of the year, but things have changed.
Yeah.
Or something like you may be hitting your KPIs, but your boss may have much higher expectations or even just higher hopes. Like, I really see this person as a leadership potential. Maybe they haven't said that to you, but if you're just like, I'm going to hit my KPIs, then to them, just be like, oh, okay, well, I guess I can do the bare minimum. So using this as, is this what you expect of me? Is this where you would like to see me going? And that doesn't have to be a, oh, well, I have to take on a lot more work. It may be back to that priority question, which is you see me just killing it. I'm getting all my projects done on time. I'm getting at a very high quality of work. I'm hitting all my KPIs. But this person's like, I want you to become a team leader. And I don't see any kind of connection or any kind of leadership quality happening between you and the rest of your colleagues. Right? So clarifying that at that point and understanding what are they seeing your potential to be.
And now the last question is there any context I might be missing about the project that I'm working on? For example, what is the reasoning for doing project X? So I think at this point, if you have any questions about any goals and the reasons why this project needs to exist, ask the question, right? So I think this is also really important as well.
Understanding the greater vision of the company, the strategy, or let's say you're in a smaller company, you're directly reporting to the head. Not every CEO is great at talking about where they think is going, rallying people behind what is their vision for the company. And so that opaque, not really understanding what's going on kind of trickles down. So it's like if the CEO is not very clear about that, usually the managers and directors are not very clear about that, then supervisor level, then down to the employees, no one really knows what they're working for. So this is a chance to be like, where does this fit into everything? Like, we're doing this project, it's taking a lot of time and resources, but I don't see where it plugs into our greater strategy. Maybe there's some insight that your manager can give you, or as a manager, you can provide someone so they have a better understanding, like, oh, okay, this is why it's critical to get this done.
Now, speaking of strategy, this is the last part of a really important one-on-one question is that you need to align with the organization and its strategy, basically. What happened is that a lot of decisions or tasks are assigned by your boss's boss. And then time goes on, there's a lot more things getting added on. And sometimes they don't align. And it's perfectly okay to actually ask the question.
In our third category of aligning with the organization and strategy, a lot of questions that may come out of this would be like, what is going on further up the tree or in other parts of the organization that would be helpful for me to know as I work on my key tasks?
Another question is, to better help me understand the big picture, how does the work I'm doing for the assignment you just gave me fit into the broader goal and strategy?
Both of these questions are really related to what I was saying before, which is you may just think, oh, someone told me to do this, but I don't get why. But once someone has laid out, like, here is what every department is accomplishing for this greater goal, now you understand how powerful and important what you're doing plugs into that strategy.
And now the next question is there anything that the management team is working on or considering that you think I should know about at present, given its potential impact on my role?
This question seems more like fishing.
Yeah, a little bit.
From the standpoint of like, I see you guys are really interested in AI. Is this going to be something good or bad for me? But knowing these things ahead of time may help you prepare, not just for maybe shifting in your role, but it may be an opportunity. Let's say that typically your company, you see it as somewhere where it's just, and I think this is true in a lot of Taiwanese companies, it's just time-based. The longer you've been there, then the more likelihood there is for you to grow in the company. But there are shifts in whether it's technology, strategy, etc., where someone can go from maybe a newer employee to the company to a more prominent role. And it's around your understanding of doing something that's related to where the company is going. So maybe the company sees like, oh yeah, AI is really important and we need to catch up. Then really developing yourself in that area may help you jump the ladder a bit.
Another thing that is kind of happening all the time is reorganization. 尤其是像这种高阶主管这边洗牌，有很多的国际的公司一定会有 reorg 会发生。当 reorg 发生的时候 strategy would change, right? People change, strategy change, team change. So yeah, it's actually up to you to ask these questions because if you don't, sometimes they don't really feel like telling you at the very moment, right? So one of the questions you can also ask is like, what is new in our strategic priorities as a company that you feel I should know about, if anything?
Things change, markets change. Obviously, AI has drastically changed most marketscapes. What does that mean for your company? Is that an opportunity for you? Is that something that's going to impact the company in decisions they make? Maybe before they're like, oh, we're going to hire 10 more people. But then they also look at be like, well, we could spend 1/10 of that. We could incorporate AI and just make people more efficient. Okay, if that's the goal, then there's different ways you might approach your job. Again, a manager is managing multiple people. They have their own job. They have usually their own bosses as well. They may forget to bring that information to everybody else. So this is always good for you to clarify for yourself to get that information. We hope that you enjoyed part 1. Of course, we'll list all of these questions and themes out in the show notes, so check them out. Think about really the next time you step into a one-on-one situation, whether it's a formal scheduled one or you can get a few minutes of your boss's time, how you can ask the right questions to get a better understanding of their expectations and where the company is going. If you're a manager, look at these questions and think about how you can have a more impactful conversation in a one-on-one. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.